Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to learn about language services and Zoom. And I know that a lot of attorneys have the need for interpreters, and I know that Zoom is a tool that offers a lot that maybe people don't know about, but we're going to learn how you can use Zoom for language services. Our presenter today is Roxane King. Roxane is the CEO of Certified Interpreters United. She is also a Supreme Court certified Spanish interpreter in both California and Ohio. So she knows her stuff. I will ask you, there are two ways you can participate. If you'd like to ask questions, you can use the chat function within Zoom. If you look at the bottom of your screen at the window, there's a button there that says chat. Simply hit that and you can send it to everyone in the room, or you can send it only to us, the hosts. There's also a Q&A function. If you hit the Q&A button, you can post your questions there. If your question is something pertinent to the moment and there's an opportunity, I'll jump in and interrupt. Otherwise, we'll save some time at the end for questions. So with that being said, Roxane, I will pass it to you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Brendan. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to present here at the CMBA and deliver all of this wonderful information that I hope will be very useful to all of the members out there. As Brendan said, my name is Roxane King. I am the CEO of Certified Interpreters United, and I am myself an interpreter for California and Ohio Supreme Courts, and I have been since 2006. I'm also an active member of NAJIT, the American Translators Association, and the CMBA. So basically, we're just going to right out of the gates, begin on how to set up and prepare for language services on your Zoom proceeding. Now, it's very important to know what technical requirements you're going to need. First and foremost, a very good internet connection, okay? I always use the Ethernet. I make sure that my computer and all the other computers or iPads that I'm using within a meeting are all connected to Ethernet, the ones that can be, and then the other ones always have backups to the internet connection. Your download needs to be a speed of at least 25 Mbps. Very, very important, so that if one of them drops, you always have a backup and you don't have to interrupt the proceeding. It's important to have a dynamic vocal microphone. So if this is something that you're going to be doing on a daily basis, using Zoom a lot for your proceedings, which a lot of us are doing now, it's good to transition from a microphone to either a headset with a microphone, or just have a microphone with your headset that plugs directly into your computer. This always helps individuals hear you better. All of the parties are heard better and understand better. And it also enables you to work in a less stressful environment where you're sure that you're hearing everything that's being said by all of the parties. So I myself use a microphone. It's a Blue Yeti microphone, and my noise cancellation headphones that are plugged in by USB, or you can also do the traditional plug-in to the computer. Very important as well to have a webcam. Now, if anybody's interested in knowing about the headphones, these are my Bose, but I also use headphones that are called the Sennheisers SC660. Those are noise cancellation, they avoid acoustic shock, they are plug-ins, and you are heard very well with them. So you can manage your voice in a very good way. They also have a mute and unmute, and that's always very convenient as well. I would highly recommend that you have in your offices headphones for your clients that are going to come in needing language services. And I'm saying that for the following reason. Not a lot of people go around with their headphones in their pockets. So if you have disposable ones or headphones that can be placed there next to the computers where you can plug in your clients so they can receive the interpreting services, that is ideal. because they're going to need that. All right, moving right along to how to schedule an interpreter. Now, first of all, it's very important when you get onto Zoom to make sure that in order to enable your interpreting function within your plan, that you have a plan that allows it. In this case, going on to the next slide, please. Pro is the one that gives you the webinar add-on feature. Now, Pro is used for small teams, but as you scroll down to the bottom, next slide, please, you will see that you have the optional add-on plan that must be added on so that you can enable interpreting services. This hosts online events with interactive video lists up to 100 people. But again, as you can see at the very bottom where the arrow is, it has the add-on video webinar, which allows you to use the interpreter function within a host meeting setup. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so we're going to begin scheduling our meeting. At the top left-hand corner, we have, let's see, I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you all. Would that be all right, Brennan?
Yes, I've unshared my screen.
Okay.
You should be able to share yours now.
Thank you so much. Here we go. Thank you for your assistance. So we're going to go back here. There we are. So we were scheduling our meeting. As you can see at the top left-hand corner, that's where we begin. Press that button and you'll schedule your meeting. Pretty basic. I'm scheduling Certified Interpreters United Zoom webinar. I've got my date and I've got my time. Now, interesting enough, and by experience, I can speak that when you place a time period here, it's not really important if your meeting is going to be an hour or 2 hours or 3. You just have to have a time frame for Zoom. Zoom will not kick you out of the system if you go beyond the 2 hours, for example, or if you do less than an hour, for example. They just need that for scheduling purposes. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Now, at the very top, I'm done filling this all out and I come down to the very bottom. Now, this is very important for you. You have, as we enabled the language interpretation function through the Pro plan or business plan so that you have the webinar add-on, now you have interpreting services enabled. In this case, I'm going to invite Aretha Franklin to be my interpreter. She's going to be an English to Chinese interpreter. And now I come down here and I'm going to schedule. Aretha Franklin's email address is placed right here. She will automatically, by default, receive an email invitation. However, it's very important to note, uh-oh, I don't know what happened here now. I lost it. Hold on 1 moment, please. There we go. Sorry about that. It's very important to note that even though by default, you know, Zoom sent out an email, you should invite your interpreter in a separate invite when you invite all of your attendees, okay? Just in case, because again, by experience, I have noticed that sometimes that email gets to the participant and others not. So just to be sure that you have your interpreter present, send them one as well. So now I'm scheduling, correct? And as you can see, all scheduled here on the left. And the invitation automatically, when you start, is copied to the clipboard. Once you have that copied, then you can prepare your email and send it out to all of your attendees. You can also copy here as well. All right, we're going to set up the meeting. And when I start my meeting, I will see this screen. I am the host and I have full control of all of this. But my most important function here, and I'm sure all of you are very aware, you know, of the mute buttons, the video, all of this at the bottom. We're all pretty aware of how that works. But for us, whereas interpretation is concerned, it's very important to always keep an eye on this little globe down here on the bottom right-hand corner. So I'm beginning my meeting, and this is the waiting room for the participants, and it's our point of view. The participants' point of view. They will see this, the Certified Interpreters United Zoom webinar, and that the host will allow them in. So I'm going to go ahead and let my guests in, and here we go. We have right here, Aretha Franklin. She's going to be our attorney. We have Salvador Dali, who's the person that's needing interpreting services. Martin Luther King, he's our judge, and our interpreter, Brad Pitt, who's connecting now to audio. Here I am as the host. Now, everybody is inside except for the interpreter. Since you never know how many participants are going to be in a meeting, it's always best to name your interpreter as the interpreter and as the language that they are rendering. So in order to do so, I would come over here to More before I admit my interpreter. Here at More, I am able to rename my interpreter. So instead of Brad Pitt, I'm going to name him the Spanish to English interpreter so that everyone is aware who our interpreter is. And I'm saying this because sometimes we have more than one interpreter interpreting a different language or interpreting the same language, but we've got 2 or 3. For example, in a trial where you have 2 interpreters working as team interpreters within the proceedings, and then a 3rd interpreter as a check interpreter or a 4th interpreter for witness testimony. So every interpreter needs to be identified, and you as the host would rename your interpreters however you wish, which is easiest for all, this way. So I've renamed my interpreter, and now Brad Pitt is our Spanish to English interpreter. All right, once that is done, and before we're starting, I mean, this is all preliminary, we want to make sure that our interpreter is enabled to be able to give interpreting services. So again, we're going to come down here to the little globe. This is our trusty tool, interpretation. We click here, and by clicking here, we are able to assign him, enable him as the interpreter. Find the language, English to Spanish, and then he is identified and enabled to be able to start. You will see that by this notification at the bottom, again, at our trusty globe that says English and Spanish interpretation is available. All of the parties will see that, so they will all know that it is now available. Now, this is a little trick that is very good for the host to know. And that is that when the interpreter, who is able to go into all of the different channels, in this case we have 3, 2, Spanish and English, you know where he is. So over here on the right-hand side, you see an E and an S. That means that your interpreter, our Brad Pitt, is in the Spanish channel. Now, when he changes over to the English channel, you will see the E and the N, that Brad Pitt, our interpreter, is now in the English channel. This is very convenient because, for example, when there's questions and answers in witness testimony, let's say, the interpreter is in the Spanish channel with the limited English proficient individual, our Salvador Dali. He is rendering interpreting services in question and answer mode. So he stays there, asks the question, and then returns back to the English channel and renders the question. Another question is asked by counsel. Interpreter returns to the Spanish channel and renders to our Salvador Dali, and then the response is given to interpreter, and interpreter comes back to the English channel. So as a host, you always know where your interpreter is by these little letters right there. Okay. Now, We still haven't begun our meeting yet. We've already enabled our interpreter. He's already identified. Now, all of the parties must choose from this option right here. Everybody is going to see this little sign that says English audio channel 1, Spanish audio channel 2. It's very important that each individual within the meeting choose which channel they wish to be in. So Salvador Dali will choose Spanish. Our judge will choose English. Our attorney, Aretha, will choose English as well. And our interpreter, Brad Pitt, will go to Spanish. Now, once that is done, host and all the parties, and they've chosen their channel, must go to mute original audio. Now we're ready to begin. Okay, so as you can see, English channel 1, English channel 2. And once you have selected the audio, please make sure to select this option. It's extremely important because a lot of times people get stuck there and nobody can figure out or understand why everyone can still hear everybody. That's because the channels haven't been activated. All right, so now all of a sudden, let's imagine that we're in the proceeding and somebody says, oh, well, I need to bring in a witness for testimony and she speaks Chinese. And so what do we do? Well, now we're going to add an interpreter, and this is something you can do while you are carrying out the proceeding on Zoom. Let's imagine that our attorney, Aretha, is going to be converted into an interpreter. We're going to make her into a Chinese interpreter for this Chinese individual. As you can see, once you've added the interpreter, you're going to select here, and it's going to be allocated an interpreter number 2. We now have to update the system. So down here, we must update. Voila. Now we have 3 channels open. We've got our English channel for all parties present, our Chinese channel for our English to Chinese interpreter, Aretha Franklin, to render in Chinese and English, and our Spanish interpreter, Brad Pitt, to render in channel number 3 in English and Spanish, and vice versa. Again, everybody has to mute their original audios. Now, during this whole time, the parties will see, all the English-speaking individuals can continue just talking, and the interpreters will be muted, obviously, for those that are in the English channel. You will see them talking, with their headphones on and going back and forth. So be it if it's in the simultaneous mode, then they will just stay active and actively speaking and muted, but you will see them working as our limited English proficient individual, or Salvador Dali, is receiving the interpreting services. Once there's a change and they need to come back into English, or our Spanish individual needs to ask a question, or our Chinese LEP needs to ask a question as well, then through the interpreters, they will ask the question and the interpreters will render in English in first person, just as if they're his voice, okay? All right, and again, for the host, you can see where your interpreters are located. So Brad Pitt is in the Spanish channel, and Aretha Franklin, our Chinese interpreter now, is in the Chinese channel, all right? All right, so Zoom has some very handy tools for us to use while we're working. And I'm sure everybody's aware of the Zoom chat, the group chat. But there's a fabulous function within Zoom chat function where you can talk to everybody and leave a message to all of that are present. For example, hello, this is a public message. So that would be from me to everyone. Hello, this is a public message. But if you don't want to interrupt the proceeding and all of a sudden your Brad Pitt the interpreter is speaking too low and nobody can hear him very well, judge might say, hello, Brad Pitt, would you be so kind as to speak a little louder? And he does this privately through Spanish to English interpreter from our judge that's asking to please speak louder. And of course, Brad Pitt will see that immediately and he will say, sure, will do. All right, and that way the proceedings were not interrupted. Brad Pitt, our interpreter, didn't have to stop the proceeding and the interpretation for Salvador Dali, nor did our Aretha Franklin either. The proceedings weren't interrupted. Basically, everything was kept behind the scenes so that everything could go smoothly. Now, as a host, you can also record your meeting, and especially in court proceedings, I'm well aware that judges and magistrates are always working very hard to make sure that all of the proceedings are being recorded, especially when there isn't a court reporter. But if there is, and you also want to record your proceeding via Zoom, you can do so down here. Record it onto the computer or record it onto the cloud. Automatically, the system will ask you either one or the other. Now, you can control your recording by pausing down here or stopping your recording. And you can also see it up here on the left-hand corner, very top. Okay, so that's very handy because the system tells you that the recording file is going to be converted to MP4 when the meeting ends, and you can always keep that in your computer and upload it to the daily record. All right, so there are times during proceedings or depositions where all of a sudden counsel needs to speak to his client privately, correct? Or maybe judge wants to have a sidebar. So judge as the host, can create breakout rooms right down here at the very bottom. In those breakout rooms, you've got, in this case, 1 or 2, because we don't have very many attendees. However, depending on the group, if it's bigger, you can create more breakout rooms. Zoom does require you to have at least 2 people per breakout room. So what you would do is you would name or rename your breakout rooms and assign. Once you hit the assign button for breakout room number 1, you can place whomever you want within your breakout room. Just choose them and they will be carried over to the breakout room. In this case, I have placed in breakout room number 1, Aretha Franklin, our attorney and judge, asking the questions. And then in breakout to number 2, I've placed Salvador Dali and his interpreter to wait. Now, once that is done, you must open all of the rooms. Once all of the rooms are opened up by the host, the participants will be invited to join the breakout rooms. So each participant must join as the system asks, and then you would close all the rooms. Okay. Now, closing all the rooms would be once everybody's finished speaking privately in those rooms, right? You close the rooms and the participants receive this notification that the rooms will be closed in 55 seconds. So once everybody is back into the main room, and one quick thing about the rooms, I did want to tell you that simultaneous interpretation does not work within the breakout rooms. It's not available inside the breakout rooms, but you can work in consecutive, which is questions and answers. So if you have your interpreter and you have Salvador Dali in a breakout room with Aretha Franklin, our attorney, and she needs to ask him questions, then through consecutive questions and answers, interpreting can be carried out. However, the simultaneous mode, which is the active mode, would not. So in that case, if you need concurrent meeting rooms with interpretation, you'd have to schedule multiple separate meetings on behalf of different licensed users, like with a company business plan or a different pro plan users. But they're required to have that add-on so that you can have the interpreter there as well. All right, so unfortunately, as a default, what Zoom does is once you've closed your breakout rooms, is it shows you this screen like this, right? And it makes you think that the breakout rooms that they're still in there because you see the numbers. However, they're not. Everybody's still in the main room. It just has this here in case you want to return to the other rooms again For example, if you meant to tell your client something and you forgot, or things weren't clarified properly and you want to go back, then the host or judge can reopen the rooms and have attorney and her client go back in there. So in this case, since we're not going to do that, we would just go straight to the red button and close it, and it automatically closes. All right, another neat thing that Zoom has, is these little reactions down here, the thumbs up or a little clap. So I know it doesn't really pertain to judicial proceedings. However, it's just something fun to know that's there and to have. We also have our mute and unmute option. This is very good because you can also, as the host, mute and unmute everybody, okay? So there we go with the unmute option. And also your video recordings can continue, or you can stop it. All right, so if I were to stop it, myself as the host, I would come here to this screen. And this screen gives me the opportunity to be able to, allow everybody in the other room, but I could, invite other people. I'd have the link here. I can copy it. So this is all very useful. And I can also return down to interpretation and manage these two things without disrupting the rest of the room. All right, well, that is the end of my presentation. I'm sure we probably do have some questions.
Thank you, Roxane. Yes, if we have questions, you can post them using the Q&A function or here in the chat, and we will answer them.
Very well.
We'll wait a few more minutes, but Roxane, I appreciate it. That was very interesting and features that I'm not sure a lot of us who use Zoom were aware of, but I can see how they'd be very useful.
Yes, very much so. This is a learning process. It's very uncomfortable at first. It's a bit intimidating to, I understand that judges and magistrates and, in depositions, counsels, everyone is already trying to get their job done. But if then on top of it, you add technology, and then on top of that, you add interpreters, it can be challenging. I do want to make it clear, though, that here in Ohio, we have an extremely strong group of certified interpreters. They're all trained to work with Zoom, and I'm really proud of that because we all work really hard to be able to give exceptional service.
Okay, if we don't have any more questions, Roxane, I would give you an opportunity once again to give your contact information to people if they're interested in that. They can contact you. And I would also say that communications@clemetrobar.org. That's communications@clemetrobar.org. That's how if you have things you want to reach and follow up, you can send that to me or Roxane if you'd like to give your contact information.
Yes, of course. Here we go. You can reach us at Certified Interpreters United. There's our webpage and email address, and also our telephone number. Any questions on anything that I spoke to you all about today, I'd be more than happy to assist. We have an array of languages and interpreters that are prepared and ready to assist in proceedings, and very honored to be here, and I thank you very much for the opportunity and in representation also of all the interpreters that are out there ready to work and assist in all the courts and legal proceedings.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up then. You have the contact information, and this will also be posted on Facebook. If you go to the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association Facebook page, you can find this live stream archived there, as well as on the CMBA YouTube channel. And with that, I will say thank you to Roxane, thank you to everyone for attending, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, have a wonderful day. Thank you for the opportunity, and be well.